Hello, good evening. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello, Irene, Aminette, Maisie, Mark, um, Ma'am Marcos, Rowena, Gina. Can you hear me? Great, great. Sorry, I got some technical problem. So I have read your assignments and I've checked some, except for those people that I've sent email, and then I'll grade their assignment as soon as I have the summary of the report. Okay, so and also I read on how you answered the problem we had uh, last week about the box problem. So I've noticed that there were five of you who are participating on that forum. And then I'm so happy to see your answers. Okay. Some are, you have many solutions on how to do it. I found out that some of you have similar answers. And I encourage everyone to participate on that forum. Um, Maybe by Wednesday or Thursday, maybe by Thursday, I'll try to read it again with that forum, and then we'll make some generalizations on the box that you have created. No? So I'm so happy to see for those who participated and took picture on your boxes. And by the way, I'll give you I guess I've shared that to you last week, that that problem, I've used that on introducing algebraic expression. So therefore, in that problem, we could, that problem align with the strand of with geometry and measurements, and as well as algebra. So using that problem, it could address two strands, that is measurement, algebra, and maybe some, depending on how student answer it, geometry. So therefore, with that one problem, it addresses at least two strands. And what is very clear in that problem is algebra and measurement. Okay, so before I start with algebraic expression, I let my student create boxes like what you did, and then maybe by Thursday, I'll try to generalize with your answers. Okay, so that is what we call teaching with problem solving. And then we have we've been introducing this approach for since 2014, and then since I am teaching in a teaching institute, therefore we also incorporated that in our curriculum. And our practice teachers, or our in service, our pre-service teachers, are already using that approach in their lesson. Okay, so teaching the concept with the use of problem. Therefore, you don't have to wait for all the concepts to be discussed first before you discuss problem solving. So what we did in teaching through problem solving, you teach through the problem. So therefore, yung mga examples at problems na nasa huli ng discussion, pwede natin gamitin dun sa starting of the lesson. Okay? So for tonight, very quickly, we will try to discuss teaching with technology in math classroom. Um, I don't know if you heard about Scratch, and this is a coding program, and uh, you could use this coding program actually in elementary. But if you haven't introduced that yet in elementary, you can introduce that in high school. This is a very simple coding program, but it's very clear that with the use of the concept if, then, that is a logical pattern, and then you can let an object move. So for example, we let that cat, that orange cat, to move 10 steps, right? And then have to turn around 45 degrees, and then 10 steps again to the left. Okay, so therefore, um, with the use of very simple coding program, they could apply math, and they could see how programming works. Okay, there are varied ways of using this in the classroom. Either you use this as a teacher resources, where you as a teacher try to use the Scratch as motivation in your classroom. My student last week have used or have made a program in Scratch, and then he used the program as a motivation in teaching experimental and theoretical probability in his classroom. So he tried to contextualize discussing theoretical and experimental probability. And there's a story, and the story is about Finding Dory. But he haven't downloaded an animation on the internet, and he tried to contextualize the discussion based on the experience of the students. So therefore, he made use of this very simple coding program Scratch to make an interactive game using Scratch software. So either you use this program as a teacher productivity tool, or if you are so familiar with this, you can use this with your students. You can let your student create something using Scratch, and they will create a game or an interactive story out of this program Scratch. And the good thing about it is this is they could apply math in programming. So this is not really a true programming, but you could develop creativity in your math classroom if you use this productivity tool with your students. I could not teach you how to do Scratch, but remember, everything is in YouTube. There is a tutorial in YouTube. You could just type tutorial in Scratch, and then after that, maybe after an hour, I'm so sure if you so focus on it, you can create a very simple Scratch program. Yes, Irene, you could still post an answer. Okay. Okay, great. So, Mark Israel, your students made games and Pac-Man games on Scratch. That's great. Rosario, maybe you could share more on your practice on that. So, I'm interested on how you integrate Scratch in your math content. I guess it will be worth sharing if you do that in our class. Okay, so I'll create a discussion forum after this, discussing more on how to use this technology in our math classroom. Okay, another one that how many of you have used PhET simulation in your classroom? Oh, I'm so sorry. There's one here who who can't participate our live stream. Sorry for that. Um, I guess I will forward to you the recorded live streaming after this session. Okay. So I'm so glad that Mark Israel have used Scratch on his classroom. I'm interested, Mark, on what grade level? Oh, it was for your ICT class. That's good. It's also good. Uh, that's also very interesting. Actually, programming is an application of math concept. So that's a very good opportunity that you're teaching math as well as ICT. When you start in geometry, the logic, the if then, and then move 10 steps. So therefore, that's still an application of math. So maybe as a math teacher, if we are not ICT teacher, we should think about if I know Scratch, then how could I use Scratch in my math class? How do we integrate that? Oh, very interesting. Thank you for that, Rosario. So you've been using that in grade 6. That's good. Uh, Actually, last week, the teacher used Scratch, not the students. So actually, it depends on how you use this productivity tool. Another thing that we need to discuss is about PhET simulation. How many of you are familiar with PhET simulation? How many of you are familiar with PhET simulation? Is anyone have used PhET simulation in your class? Okay. Okay. So PhET simulation is a PhET Colorado. It's in Colorado University that they've created simulation for math and science classroom. Before, it's more on science. It's more on physics and chemistry. But recently, they've added math as simulation. So you can use this as a tool on understanding more a math concept. Okay, one example that you could use maybe uh, are on our screen, that is area builder, balancing act. Uh, the good thing about PhET simulation is you go to this website, phetcolorado.edu simulation, and then you just click math. Um, and then you choose a simulation. There's a very good simulation because on your report, many of the students have difficulty in learning math. There's a good application or simulation in this PhET simulation, which is about fraction. So you could download it first on your computer, and then you don't need an internet when you want to show it in your classroom. Or and then after that, you could share that to all of your students, or you can put the program in the computers in the computer lab, and you don't need an internet connection. So all you have to do, the teacher will download first the Java program and then install it in every computer or install it in your PC. If the teacher will only use the simulation either in the motivation part or in the application part or in the assessment part. It's up to you. Last week, 3 of my students have used this one, and most of them are, 2 of them are using it in the no, in the assessment part. Okay. Okay, so in this PhET simulation, there are about more than 5 math application, or more than 8 or 9 math application that you could use in your classroom. So try to explore on that and then save it in your computer and then try to use it. Uh, Not all, Mark, are touch interactive. I guess most of this, but they are exploring. Pet simulation is exploring that it could be installed in a on a what you call this, on tablet or on mobile devices. Yes, good, Rowena. So maybe have you tried to use this simulation on your class, Rowena? Yes, Gina. All of these are free. You don't have to pay for this simulation software. Okay, so you may try in your if you have time, you try to explore, download one, and then install it in your computer. So it will run in Gchrome or in Mozilla, or it will run any if you have Java in your computer. Okay. Another one is a Philippine courseware. This is what we call the DUST courseware project. Anyone have anyone have used this courseware, the DUST courseware? Yes, Gina. If you try to go to PhET simulation, you try to look at which of those simulation that you could apply in your primary class. Okay. Okay, good, Maizy. All you have to do is go to PhET simulation and then try to download one, and then just give it a try. Use it in your classroom. Okay. How many of you have heard the courseware project of DUST? Huh. Okay. So there's a, I guess this was launched 5 years ago, the courseware project of DUST. Now there are courseware here that is already tablet ready. Most of it that are tablet ready are for primary, for elementary. And then the secondary, are most of it are still for PC. But it is still not so touch sensitive, but you could use it on your mobile. Uh, the old, what we call interactive simulation of DUST. Because before, we tried to use the courseware in using tablet. So we install the application in a tablet and then we use it. But it's not too touch sensitive. But anyway, students can use this. Okay. Yes. So you could explore on this courseware. You could also share this with your science teachers. Science and math simulations is uh, is available in courseware.ust.gov.ph. But the high school grade 7 to grade 10, I guess it's only grade 7 and 8, are not yet touch sensitive, but most of the elementary courseware are already touch sensitive. You could use it with your mobile mobile gadget. Okay, so all of the you could just download for free and then save it in your computer, and you could share it. The file is in zip file, and then you just extract it and then copy the flash file on a mobile phone or a mobile gadget or on a computer. Okay, so there are more, but I just focus on that because I already heard in I guess three of you have observed a classroom who used GeoGebra in the class. and other graphing software in the classroom. So there are a lot of mathematical resources, and out of 17 who have submitted their assignment, there were only few who have used technology or calculators in the class. But it's okay. What is very important is the appropriate use of technology in the classroom is very important. Okay? So, and by the way, I put it in the middle of my presentation. Most of you on your assignment, I've tried to summarize all the approaches that when you interview teachers, most of the teachers are using active learning, cooperative learning, discovery approach, inductive approach, integrative, and constructivism approach. And then I guess the question now is how could I use this technology when my approach is discovery approach or inductive approach? How will I use this? Okay, so all you have to do is think about on how will I use technology appropriately to enhance my math teaching. Okay, some of you expressed that the instructional materials that teachers were using are 2D and 3D manipulatives, presentation software. Many teachers are doing presentation in their class, so therefore it's the teacher only use technology with technology. So I hope teachers will also use technology with the students, not only the teacher who use technology. And I like on using Venn diagram in the class, maybe not only on sets, but maybe it's a strategy on solving a problem. Some are using flashcards, and some, mm, I guess, three who mentioned that three teachers have used GeoGebra in the classroom. So GeoGebra, by the way, is a freeware, and you could also explore on how to use that in your classroom. But GeoGebra can be used not in primary, but it will be from grade 7 to grade 10. These are some difficulties based on your assignment, the lack of focus for the students. So if it is lack of focus for the students, how could simulation help them to focus on math? Maybe it will be more interesting if we use technology in your class. Maybe this problem could be addressed. Problem solving, yeah, that's most of the problem of math teachers, because one of the key skill that we should teach in math is problem solving, not only computational skill, not only memorization routine, uh, following the formula. The end goal of math teaching is about how do we teach problem solving and critical thinking in math class. So it's very sad to hear that most of the math teachers focus more on doing computation, doing memorization, and then some technique to make it quicker, but not less on how to solve problem. That's why we propose using the approach teaching through problem solving, where use the problem on the first day of your discussion to teach the content so that we will not forget how to solve problem. It's very sad to hear that most of the teachers that you have interviewed do not allow use calculators in the class. It is only allowed for large numbers because it will make them lazy. But I guess we need to think about how do we use calculators for them to focus more on solving a problem rather than on computing. So maybe we should also think about that. But it's also okay. It's also appropriate that if you are teaching statistics and you are using large number calculation, so you use calculator. And then one teacher expressed that I don't let my students use calculator because I don't want them to depend on it and fail to learn the basics. But remember, the basic or the essential thing that we need to teach in our math classroom is problem solving, where calculators would be a good tool to learn more about problem solving. But every teacher have their own way on how to make math classroom more interesting. Maybe they have good reasons why they don't allow their class to use calculator. Okay, so we've discussed those technology tool, and I'm also thinking on uh, challenge you on with those different approaches. How do we maximize the use of technology in our class? Okay, so therefore we also need to think about that. So therefore, when you want to integrate technology in our class, therefore we need to think about instructional design in our classroom. In what way could we appropriate use of technology in our classroom? So when you have the tool, you need to think about how do we integrate it appropriately in our classroom. And that is what we call instructional design. And by the way, this is discussed in the next module on curriculum development, on how do we think about on uh, improving our curriculum and how to develop one. And it is very important that part of curriculum design is what we call instructional design. It is a systematic process of planning, developing, managing, and evaluating the instructional processes so that we could ensure effective learning. So therefore, we need to think about what are the students' strengths and weaknesses in terms of what they know and how they learn. What learning resources are available? How will I use these resources appropriately in my classroom? And this is very important. How much time do you have to complete the lesson? What do you want students to learn in this lesson? That's why we must be very clear on our learning objectives. How do you know if the students learned what they were supposed to learn? Great, Rowena. No? So I'm so glad to hear that DepEd is encouraging the use of calculators in class. Okay. Oh, Doji, you're asking, may I ask what is the main function of the courseware project? I'm not so sure with the function, Doji, but the goal of DOST is use simulation or this courseware to make the topic more interesting and uh, maximize the use of technology in the class. In my own opinion, when I try to use their courseware, this courseware would really help on discussing a topic in math or in science. Okay, so uh, by the way, since we're thinking about either you develop a lesson plan or thinking about using technology in a class, we must, and then we try to make an activity in our classroom. So therefore, we are designing an activity. So therefore, this is the suggestion, the framework of Dick and Carey, that we need to assess first our learners to identify the learning goal. And then after that, write performance objectives. And then after writing performance objectives, you try to think what is the end. That's why the next step is develop an assessment instrument. So that there's a a good mapping of your learning objectives and what is the end goal. So therefore, thinking about the end in mind. Okay. Another one is another one is after you identify the assessment instrument, you try to develop instructional strategy, the process of implementing, and then select and develop instructional material, and then conduct a formative evaluation, and then design and conduct summative evaluation, and then you try to go back. So therefore, instructional designing is, or writing a lesson is in, or writing an activity is an iterative process. Okay? So when you design one, try to think about the backward curriculum design of Dick and Carrie. So write your learning objective and then think about the end. How do I assess learning? And then after that, you try to write the process. And then think about if the technology that you want to use is appropriate to attain those learning objectives, as well as on uh, you have achieved what are the things that the student should learn. Okay, so it's not about this is a very good tool, then we are not thinking about what's the end. So that's why it is the framework of Dick and Carey is the backward curriculum design. Before you try to select a tool, we need to ensure first the learning objectives, what's the end, and then what's the process, and then how do I use this tool so that you can ensure learning based on your assessment. Okay, so remember that the objectives of using the appropriate use of technology in our class is to improve the levels of thinking, the cognitive skills. And in mathematics, we have to emphasize on three cognitive skills. That is knowing, applying, and reasoning. Okay? Technology literacy, knowledge about what technology is, how it works, what purpose it can serve, and how can it be used efficiently and effectively to achieve specific goal. Information literacy, creativity, planning, and teaming and collaboration. So I will post this presentation in our website. Okay, and this global awareness. Okay, so let's go back with why do we use technology? Because we want to improve the levels of thinking. And what are the levels of thinking that we want to address in our math classroom? And that is only for the TEAMS framework, that is knowing, applying, and reasoning. Okay? So it is still very important that we teach the foundation so that students would uh, be more comfortable on applying, on solving problem, and then reason out on their answers. So these are the three important cognitive skills that we want to develop in our math classroom. Okay, so here I've presented to you the teams framework because here in the Philippines, nasa top kasi tayo, nasa top galing sa baba, no? Either nasa top 4 tayo from the bottom. Now, this is so sad. It's time for us to reflect on how do we teach math in our class. Okay, so knowing these are the keywords, and this is an example of a math item that is knowing using the teams. This is an example item of teams in 2011. Okay. Oh, Rosario, you have downloaded a PhET simulation. Okay. And then another cognitive skill is applying. Okay. where you could use these keywords on writing your learning objectives when you try to address applying learning objectives. And this is an example of an item on applying. Okay. Actually, you could use this problem on teaching the content of how, okay, of measurement, no? Okay, so you could use this. As you could see, this problem addresses two strands, geometry and measurement. And always remember, when you teach math, think about the students would be able to reason out, justify their answers. Make analysis on their solution. Solve problems in real life context. Make connections on what we have discussed. Use relationship between variables. So that is what we call reasoning. And this is one example of our reasoning items in themes. Okay? So therefore, when we want to use technology in our class, or when you want to design a curriculum a curriculum in math or an activity in math, try to think about addressing this three cognitive skill. Knowing, applying. So dapat hindi lang tayo hanggang applying, but at the end of the school year, we should teach our students in our math classroom. They must know how to justify, to make connections, and then applying what they learn in math in real world context. I guess that's all. I'm so sorry that I was late on broadcasting my presentation. I had technical difficulty a while ago. So supposed to be, this is a very short uh, webinar. It's supposed to be 8:30 to 9, but we have an overtime of 20 minutes. I'm so sorry. I guess that's all for tonight. If you have a question, then we could do the chat. Please do write your question on chat. Oh, that's very interesting, Duji. What do you mean by that, Duji? Do technology also have a dichotomous property? Would anyone could answer that? Duji, could you elaborate on your question? Do technology also have a dichotomous property?